So my name is Dan Berger. This event is so much harder for me than events I normally do because it's so personal to me. So I really want to thank you all for coming here today. And when we started planning 5 or 6 months ago to honor David, to do this event, we wanted to honor David. We didn't just want to do a book event. Right? We wanted to honor someone who's really impacted so many people that he's met and that he hasn't met. And so we started to think that one of the best ways to do that was to honor our movements, right? Was to honor that drive, right, to confront fear, as Ashanti said, to overcome fear, right? Which doesn't mean that you ever let go of it necessarily, right? But that you know when you're afraid and how you can push through it and how you can work through it. And to sort of acknowledge the deeper passion, the deeper struggle for justice that animates us, right? That keeps us going, from issue to issue, that keeps us going from campaign to campaign, right? That allows us to get through, the times when we lose, the times when it's hard, the times when our comrades are locked up or sick, or when our comrades pass on. And so that's why we're here today, right? That and to sell some books. And so as part of that, I guess I want to honor the revolutionaries who are in this room, right? The folks who are revolutionaries for their whole life. Ashanti, Michael, Bilal, Pam, so many folks here. Hakeem, yeah, absolutely. I want to honor the revolutionaries who are maybe a little bit older than me, my age, and the folks who are younger than me as well, right? And that one of the things that I've learned from David and from other political prisoners is really what it means to be in this for the long haul, right? And that the this isn't just that specific thing, right? Not just that specific organization or that specific campaign that we're really focused on, right? And including our organization. And that the this is a much bigger movement that we're all a part of, that extends well beyond any kind of borders that we could conceive, right? Certainly the borders of the nation state, but also the borders of a prison. So I've known David for about half my life. I started writing him when I was 16, and I'm 30 now. And I started writing him because I didn't know where to find anyone who had any kind of political expertise or experience that was older than I was. Right? I knew that they were out there, but I knew also that they weren't in the suburbs of South Florida. And so the only place that I found them was in prison. Right? Not just David. Ray Lavasser, who got out a couple years ago, Sandiata Kolai, who's still in, David, Jaleel, other folks who we saw in this video, Marilyn Buck, who passed away almost 2 years ago. Right? And that these people became my mentors, and David especially. And that they were able to hold up a sense of struggle, but also a sense of, that part of that struggle was reflection, right? Was being able to think critically about our own history. Right? And it's something that I think David does so remarkably, right? All the more remarkable because he's done it serving a life sentence in some of the roughest prisons, certainly that New York State has to offer. Right? And part of why David has been in there and able to stay so focused, so committed on continuing and reproducing these histories of struggle, right, is that he has this clarity, right? That he knows that there are some big sacrifices that he's made, that countless other people have made here and around the world for their participation in revolutionary struggles, right? In popular movements. And he has peace with that. Right? He knows that there are big sacrifices that he's made, that there are big losses that have come, right? It doesn't mean he doesn't feel there are ways to think of that. It's really hard, it's complicated, it takes a lot out of you, right? I don't mean to suggest that it's simple, but that he's at peace because he knows his principles and his priorities, right? And I feel personally lucky to have known him over the past 15 years and to have brought some of you in this room and other people to see him and build a relationship with him as well, right? Because I think that's part of what it means to pass it on, right? To carry it forward, to keep our movement strong and keep them going. And part of that clarity that David has, that I hope I've taken from him and learned from him, which Ashanti was talking about, right, is the centrality of white supremacy and empire to everything that we're doing, right? To the struggles that we're raging, to the issues that we're confronting, right? That a sharp, militant opposition to white supremacy needs to be at the heart of that. Right? But that is what motivates our work at some level, right? Or that without that, we're not going to advance. And part of what that means is not just like, oh, these poor oppressed people, in North Philly, or these poor oppressed people in Palestine, or these poor oppressed people in Venezuela, and so on, right? But actually recognizing that any forward movement, any conditions of possibility are actually going to come from the most oppressed people in society, right? A certain displacing of, right, this kind of white American savior. Right? At the same time, it doesn't mean that to me as a white American and a white American man has no role in that, right? Has no role in the sort of people's struggle for liberation. And I think David has done such a beautiful job of being able to recognize, right? When he talks about being an ally, it's not about, I really support your struggle, right? But that it is, we are engaged in the same struggle, that we have the same fight, right? But that we are, whether we're fighting on different fronts or working in different organizations, or even just coming from different histories, right? But that we have the same fundamental struggle and the same fundamental movement that we're a part of. And so I just want to read a short passage that I think brings these things together, from white supremacy to just his really remarkable ability to be self-critical and reflective through it all. So this is towards the end of the book when he's in jail and talking about that experience. It says, over the years I'd followed many cases where revolutionaries were busted on charges of armed struggle. I believe there were two fundamentally yet very difficult responsibilities in such a situation. In the face of the firestorm of repression and criticism, to continue to uphold the basic principles of fighting against racism and imperialism, and at the same time to engage in self-criticism so that the broader movement could learn from our setbacks. Each task is extremely difficult under the circumstances. Doing both at the same time can feel impossibly contradictory. It's a given that the same establishment that consistently refuses to prosecute or even renounce the government's attacks against a peaceful movement will vehemently discredit armed resistance as criminal and terrorist. At the same time, most of the left will also condemn such actions, usually arguing that any armed struggle provides a pretext for government repression of the broader legal movement. And much of the predominantly white left oppose revolutionary black nationalism. The common criticism of us was that there was nothing political about a robbery. To me, that was a shock, since almost all revolutions have used expropriations to obtain funds. And the highly political purposes of the BLA should have been obvious, given the recent escape of, or help of Assad Shakur in breaking out of prison. I'm just going to skip around here. In any case, the important point here for white radicals wasn't the practicality of any particular solution to racism, but rather the politics of solidarity, respect and support for principled black challenges to the white supremacist basis of America. At the same time, there was obviously, even if I came to grips with it slowly, a lot to critically analyze about our actions. 4 people had been killed, 3 wounded, many revolutionaries busted, clandestine networks had crumbled, and the movement as a whole had suffered a major setback. These human and political consequences were very serious. Even when under fierce attack from the state and media, we need to both fight back and analyze our mistakes. We have to consider criticisms from the movement, and even when criticized from the right, by forces that seek only to discredit us, we have to examine the content, because unprincipled people can seize on real weaknesses to use in their polemics. As revolutionaries, our commitment isn't to our own status, but rather to advancing the struggle. Indeed, if we can draw out useful lessons, our personal sacrifices are not completely in vain. Thank you.